Here we are with the Mando, Marty, CTO. The market is doing some very peculiar stuff. There's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. And the question is, a couple of questions actually. One, have we seen the worst of it? Normally, what I've seen before we get into introducing everybody first is bad stuff happens to crypto over the weekend before traditional markets get hit. And it's all kind of fleshed out by the time the markets open on Monday. And we're seeing exactly the same thing happen again. So we'll jump into it. And with the big topic today will be, is the 4-year cycle dead? And then we'll look at historical. We'll look at what experts are saying. We'll look at liquidity. And we'll look at a whole bunch of stuff, ETFs, China, money, Saylor, how to protect your money. But before we do, don't forget everybody's links. If you don't know where you're watching it, you can watch it on any channel. The more channels, the better as far as we're concerned. Mando's minutes are down below. Also, you can see there, great thing. I read every morning, by the way. Marty Party has a community, a bunch of very happy campers, intense alpha traders, and of course, CTO Larsson, website, indicator, channel, everything, Twitter. We all have Twitter. So how is everybody? Mando, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster again this week. For everything but Bitcoin. I feel like Bitcoin's kind of been where it's been for the last 3 or 4 weeks in this very, very tight range, probably like a 5 to 10% range. Macro's not had a great week. Still feels like crypto's slightly outperforming. At least Bitcoin is. Bitcoin dominance continues to go higher. I kind of think that it's a repeat of what I said last week. I think this points to us being in a longer chop where crypto outperforms the stock market, or at least Bitcoin does.
Interesting. And we've seen what's happened to gold. Gold is full on risk off. People are stacking gold like crazy. And I'm saying everybody on the planet knows gold 2.0 is Bitcoin. It's far superior in every single way possible. That should be, at least when I see gold go up, I personally get excited. Not that I own any gold or I've ever owned gold, but it's a harbinger of what's to come. CTO, how are you, sir?
I am fantastic. It's a very interesting point in the market, and I'm dying to show some charts, as usual.
We'll get to those for sure, and a whole much more, and maybe some of your deep thinking too. And Marty, what's going on?
Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? No, I'm great. I'm terrific. Exactly where I thought we'd be. Pretty much copying 2017, in my opinion. I've got some charts to show that too. Later, we can get into that. I think we're doing fantastic. We're always lag behind global liquidity and gold is making its run, which means it's just a matter of time before Bitcoin does the same.
Yep.
I'm positive. I mean, not much change. I think the price is exactly where we were last week on the show. Yep. Correct?
Exactly.
Q2 started yesterday, guys. Q2 is the big quarter. I think we're going to see a lot of changes this Q2. And obviously today we've got the federal government rolling over their debt, and tomorrow the reciprocal tariffs starting. So expect a lot of volatility at the beginning of April. But I think April is going to be a good month. So, let's lead into the data. Thanks, guys, for having me on again.
Tomorrow's April 1st, a very special day for many reasons. And then we have a lot of other good stuff coming. So let's get into the agenda real quick so people know what's coming. We're going to talk about, will Bitcoin take off, or is the cycle dead? And we'll look at the 4-year cycle. Is it over or not, or is it different this time? And then we have some experts like Tom Lee and Uncle Larry, Lawrence Lepard, says Bitcoin crash and then 250K rally. And Tom Lee has some very good things to say as well. Just 34 minutes ago, Saylor buys a massive bag of 22,000 Bitcoin. That's 22,000 whole coiners denied, not wholesalers. And then a whole bunch more stuff. We'll talk about Liberation Day. The markets around the world globally are being hammered because of Liberation Day. We'll get into that. And 58% of investors think gold is golden in a trade war, which again goes back to what we spoke about. When will Bitcoin follow gold? Other huge news on the macro side, on the US side, on the pro-crypto side, FDIC, SAC doing a lot of good stuff. Tariffs, again, more rattling of markets. We'll talk about maybe the UK and the sovereign debt crisis from James Van Straten. 6 all ETFs are now filed. Mando will get to you on China, unbanning crypto and China QE, and other stories that pop in live as we speak. But let's get into the first story. Bitcoin takeoff in May. I spent some time analyzing this, and everybody has analyzed this. Raoul Pal, a guy called Colin Talks Crypto, and the correlation between global M2 and the Bitcoin price. It is staggeringly tight. And you can all build your own charts in TradingView, and you can showcase this. But I dug into this and a whole lot more, and also forecasted the impact of how much new liquidity has happened so far year to date. It's about $4.5 trillion, and how much of that could go into the S&P 500 as well as Bitcoin. And it's fascinating. So from my perspective, I do not see the Bitcoin bull run being over. I do see the 4-year cycle being modified due to ETFs, etc., and Saylor heavy buying by treasuries. But I will start once again with you, Mando. Is the bull market over? The question that everybody keeps asking, because like literally 20 to 30% of people think it is.
I don't think the bull market's over, but that's really a Bitcoin question, I think, more than anything else. I think Bitcoin can continue to push higher. I do think that we're probably in a temporary downward period here for Bitcoin. Do I think the 4-year cycle is over? I've been saying I didn't really believe in the 4-year cycle for a while now, and that we would get less deep sell-offs in crypto, or at least in Bitcoin, just because of the institutional bid that was now coming in, and the market structure had now changed. That's arguably what you could think this is. Like, it's just been a smaller retracement, which has been linked to a bit of a macro sell-off, but that we should turn back up with what we've seen in kind of global liquidity and gold. I do think that we're going to retain that correlation to gold and global M2 or global liquidity, however you want to define it. It's up until now we've had this correlation alongside the stock market too, as your CTO has been following as well. We've been slightly outperforming that over the last couple of weeks, and I think that will continue. I do think that Bitcoin, at least, will outperform any downward move here in the US stock market.
And we're actually seeing that today. We're seeing the US stock market, NASDAQ, etc., tanking. We saw different markets around the world tank last night, Korea, Japan, etc. And now Bitcoin is holding up because it flushes over the weekend. Marty, 2 questions. Are we going to take off in May based on global liquidity? And is the 4-year cycle over?
Yeah, you guys have, it's a couple months ago, remember, I said that I think the 4-year cycle is very modified. I think we're moving more to a super cycle. I think that we all have to accept that the last time we printed money or injected new liquidity into the economy was in 2020. That's 5 years ago, guys. So all of the appreciation and expansion, the word is expansion. This 4-year cycle, for those that are listening, is basically accumulation after halving, right? Accumulation, expansion, peak, and then correction. So if you think about it like that, where are we now? I think that we haven't had an injection in liquidity. The price appreciation of Bitcoin especially has come from institutional investment, taking advantage of the bear market. Brought us up to where we were, took us up to 100K on the Trump nomination. We've kind of corrected back. We haven't given up all 68. But in my opinion, we haven't hit expansion. I believe expansion hits when we turn from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. And if we all are very familiar with the current macro cycle, we're in extremely delayed quantitative easing announcement. They're stretching, this process as long as they can. I think when we get there, we will finally know whether we catch up with the 4-year cycle. We'll see the expansion, and everybody's talking 150 to 300,000 will be the top towards the end of the year. Some people say August, some people say September this year. I think that's when we'll really know. In my opinion, we've started stealth quantitative easing. I have evidence to that matter, and I think it's just a delayed cycle. But as far as the typical 4-year cycle, I think it's changing, and I think you're right. The nature of the bid is different, Mando. The people involved are different. The money is different. And we haven't had an injection of new liquidity, which is always the thing that, boosts the expansion and into the peak. And we haven't had that yet. So there we are.
Yeah. And this chart, by the way, it highlights orange is where we are right now. And per APSK top-notch analyst, he believes we could be 200,000 by year end. It is not over, but the cycle is different. We hit a new all-time high before the halving. That never happened in the history of Bitcoin. So it's as if Bitcoin's running prematurely and then takes a breather. And that's the big,
you have to ask,
big thing.
James, you have to ask yourself, go and ask 10 random people in your life, if they just got $50,000 of new money, what would they do with it right now? You would find that a lot of them will put it in Bitcoin. Okay, they want to invest, they just don't have money. The retail is literally on the last legs. Credit card debt is maxed.
That's true.
We need, the minute liquidity comes, I believe a far bigger majority of it, based on previous cycles, will go into crypto. And that's what we're waiting for.
Yeah. In the US, 12%, 13% of people are behind on their car payments. For car loans, a lot of Americans borrow to buy cars, whereas in Europe you pay cash. But also, I think 6.2 million people are behind on their mortgage payments. 6.2 million homes could be foreclosed upon. That is scary. And that shows you, Marty, there is no cash in the kitty. CTO, over to you, buddy. What's going on? What do you see in your crystal ball?
So, of course, I'm thinking a lot about these different models as well. But at the end of the day, I will just follow price. So if I can point out a few things here. The bars are Bitcoin, and the purple line is the S&P 500 stocks. And as you can see here, they just follow each other. And I would say it's Bitcoin that follows stocks, not the other way around. And the second thing we can quickly observe, what both of you said, or Mando, you said as well, that Bitcoin has in fact held up better than stocks in this dump relative to the usual size of their movements, right? Bitcoin tends to be more volatile than the whole stock market, but if you normalize for that, I mean, these two tend to just follow each other. And as you can see here, Bitcoin has gone down in the same pattern as stocks, but slightly less. So, and why is that happening? Perhaps because of the size of Saylor purchases. Similar players like that have bought so big volume that it actually impacts the price. But overall, Bitcoin is simply following stocks right now. You can wake up every day, check the S&P 500 futures, and you know with almost certainty if Bitcoin will go up or down that day. It's basically day by day, hour by hour, it moves in the same direction. So
it's even more correlated with the QQQ.
Exactly. And you know, you can go even in more detail if it's more correlated with the QQQ. You can find individual stocks that's even more correlated with. Absolutely right. But it's not correlating with gold, because gold is moving in the other direction. It is inversely correlated with gold at this point. So today, Bitcoin is behaving as a speculative asset, something that you want to make money on. So if you think the stock market is going to go up, people buy Bitcoin. If they think stock market is going to go down, they sell stocks and their Bitcoin as well. That is the situation right now. And then exactly like Marty said, if there comes then a bunch of liquidity into the system, if we inject a lot of money, what are people going to do? They're going to buy a bunch of stuff. They're going to buy US equities and Bitcoin, and both are going to go up. That can almost guarantee what happens. So that's the situation we're in. And then comes basically the next question then, and that is, when is the stock market turning around? And I think that's something that's very interesting to try to understand here, because that's maybe the best clue we have. That's despite Saylor's huge buy, it was not enough to turn this around. We need the overall economy in the US, and it's specifically the US stock market that is correlated with here. It's not correlated with a Chinese stock market or something else. It's the US stock market. That is the clue. And so that's the first thing to observe. The other thing to observe is that, I mean, the trend is down here. So that has to change. We have to get back into this range. We're not going to go to $1 million with a trend down. So there's no need to be too stressed here. It's going to turn around at some point. We can't miss it. We're going to sit here every week, and there's no risk to miss the turnaround. So I think there's no need to be too stressed or scared to miss it either. And I don't know if the stock market is turning around here. I don't think we will have this like catastrophic mega crash. I don't think the Trump administration wants to crash the stock market another 30-40% or something. No, I don't think so. But I don't know exactly when it will turn either. And I'm happy to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff behind the curtain, as they say. And remember, people say it's Trump doing this. No, it's not. It's 3 self-made billionaires that know markets, and they know how to make money, and they know how to protect the US. And there will be, as we've said for many months now, short-term pain before the medium to long-term gain. That's what's going to happen. And this is all happening in confluence with the global liquidity that's going to kick in too. But there's more good stuff behind the scenes. We have people like Tom Lee coming up today, like 34 minutes ago on CNBC, saying 80,000 is a good time to be stacking Bitcoin, and it'll go to 150K or higher this year, which is kind of crazy. And then Lawrence Lepard was on Simply Bitcoin, and he said, crash, and this is a while back, so crash by, where we are now, the 80K, 78K, 83K level, and then a big rally to 250,000. Now, I'm going to ask each one of you, starting you CTO first, is this hopium? Or does this have legs? Like Tom Lee, he has been extremely good on picking certain assets like Bitcoin, like Tesla, etc., nailing bottoms. He's got a team of technical analysts, and he sees this in the cards. Do you see it?
I mean, long term, obviously, I'm extremely positive to Bitcoin. There is, the situation has never been remotely this good for Bitcoin. That is clear. There is no doubt about that. So, of course, long term, I'm super positive. And I think the stock market will turn around at some point. Then Bitcoin turns around. And my base guess is that we resume uptrend, as we always do. So that's my thought. I think over time, for sure, we will go much, much higher. I don't know exactly when. In the 4-year cycle, I'm not sure. First, I didn't believe in it at all. Then I kind of felt that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Perhaps it has some point. Now I'm not so sure anymore. I see it as an interesting exercise, but at the end of the day, I will just follow price. If that's been my tactic all these years, not going to change it.
And then, Mando, does the lack in activity on chain bother you at all around Bitcoin? And I don't think that has anything to do with price at all. The fact that the chain is not busy, because it is much more of a store of value than an actual functional chain.
I think there's a lack of activity on well, at least there's definitely been a downturn in activity on most chains. Whether that worries me, I don't know. Like this is a sort of time where you can buy things that you think are going to be active maybe next year or towards the end of this year at better prices. So maybe it's a good exercise in what looks cheap. It definitely feels as though crypto's lost some of the focus. Like if you look at Google search trends, crypto's down quite a lot, like back to kind of some of the lows of last year. And you can see that in the amount of activity happening on even the most active chains like Solana and Bitcoin too. I think if this is a good time to not try and rush it. I do think it can take a little bit longer than people expect often these periods. You don't necessarily need to buy into momentum at any one point. I still think, though, if you're talking about Bitcoin specifically, it's the one that has a different sort of investment thesis to a lot of the others. I'm not negative on the US stock market, but I do think that the issues around some of the Magnificent Seven, particularly around AI and how much of their value was attributed to them having a global dominance on that, I think is something that isn't going to go away. Like it's not something that just like because it's down, people will buy it. I think people are kind of a little bit scared about that. There's some fear there. So my base case here is just that crypto outperforms and it becomes more like gold. So I'm definitely more bullish on Bitcoin than I am on other things right during this period. But as we come out and activity starts to pick up again, then you can buy some amazing L1 trades, I think, as well.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. There's so much confusion. I noticed I did a chart a few days ago on the ETH BTC, basically a 5-year low. There was another tweet from some guy who bought ETH 7 years ago, and he made 30% in 7 years, and he's very disappointed. He thought that would be life-changing money. And it shows you, and if you take debasement away from that 30% gain over 7 years, you're toast. You're got completely wrecked. But this is a question that came in from, looks like a Kiwi. Shout out to the Kiwis there in New Zealand. Dennis Marshall, what are you guys expecting the SOL ETFs will do to the price? Do you think it will follow Bitcoin's path or ETH path in regarding to the price following ETF starting? I'll take this first, and then I'm going to kick it to you, Marty, because the 6 SOL ETFs now filed. But a lot of people were trapped in the ETH ETF, and that's why it's sold off. And also now TradFi is beginning to understand the importance of adoption, etc. And it's very clear, and it has been to all of us here for years, that the layer 2s have cannibalized the layer 1 ETH, and it has a massive problem. I'm surprised Vitalik didn't see that. So no, I do not think the SOL ETF will follow the same path as the ETH ETF. And also a huge ton of SOL is staked, much higher ratio than Ethereum ETF. So it's going to be much harder. It's a much smaller asset. There'll be a lot of money coming, especially in light of the RWA narrative, stablecoin narrative, etc. Marty, what do you think of this? And I'll pop this up real quick if I can. I got to remove this first. I'm trying to share another slide. Maybe I can.
I'll answer the previous question with Bitcoin right now where we are. I mean, we all just have to zoom out. I think zooming out is important right now. We have to understand that last year we were at $30,000 in the bottom of the bear market, right? We went from 30 to 50. We nearly doubled. Then we did a 300-day consolidation. That's one vector. Then we doubled again. We went from 50,000 to 100,000. That's your second vector. That's how Bitcoin works. Now we're in the third accumulation for the final vector, and the final vector will double where we are now. We'll go to 150 to 160,000. That'll be a cycle. Just focus on that. The little noise in between, whether we're correlating with stocks, that's just the in-between stuff, okay? We're on a transition in systems. The financial system is moving from a centralized central bank system to a decentralized Bitcoin-based stablecoin system. And that transition takes time. It's not easy. We're in the middle of it right now. What we're waiting for now is regulatory clarity for all these things to hit the Senate floor and get voted in. States are not going to buy Bitcoin high, guys. They're not going to buy Bitcoin high. They're going to buy Bitcoin low, around this level. So wait for that. You got to wait for states to enter. You got to wait for the regulations to pass, and then we'll see the final vector. That's my opinion. We'll see how that goes. Then, yes, there's seven SOL ETFs. 7 is this many.
7, not 6.
7.
Okay.
7. Fidelity filed 2 weeks ago. They even updated their filing. Their filing is the most aggressive. It uses that 14.11 E4 rule change. I studied the BZX rule book in detail, and basically it defines Solana as a commodity already. The volatility shares listing Solana as futures, and it's currently trading, means the CFTC has already reclassified Solana as a commodity. The CME has now Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana on their dashboard, tracking the prices as a commodity. So it looks like we have a big 3. And the next will be the Solana ETF approvals. They'll be the first in-kind staking ETFs. I think it's going to be a big stir on the stock market. This truly is a tech stock. Ethereum was obviously first, but it's not a great technology. As a tech investor, I would not invest in an ETF, Ethereum ETF. A Solana investment is different. It's more of a technology. I think Solana is the next Linux. I think it's the next big open source software that will be used, implemented, forked by, corporations. This is a piece of software that has infinite use cases. So I think this is truly going to be a very different ETF. The next one we're waiting for, obviously, is BlackRock's application. I look every day. I think it's coming. It's just a matter of time. But I think the SOL ETFs are going to be much bigger than the Ethereum ETFs, just on a technical perspective. I just think it's a better technology.
And also
It's a
price.
stock.
Yeah. And then the other big story is, of course, this one. Saylor, 22,000 Bitcoin is a substantial bag. They now have 528,000. If you add up Coinbase, MicroStrategy, who else? Who are the big players? Marty.
The big players? You want my
Binance,
top five?
Binance, Coinbase, MicroStrategy.
Yeah, let me look for you. Here we go, boys. Coinbase has 1,009,000. They just passed 1 million. Just remember, this is not they own it. People constantly have to field it. When I say Coinbase has 1 million, I mean they have the keys to 1 million Bitcoin. Legally, they own very little. I think Coinbase own 54,000 Bitcoin personally. I'll have to check, but it's around 50,000. The rest is legally owned by their customers, and they hold it as custody for third parties. But they have the keys for 1 million Bitcoin. Binance has 632,000, BlackRock 575,000, and Strategy today with the acquisition moves up to 530,000. So they're knocking on BlackRock's door. They're knocking on Binance's door. And you can see the arms race is heating up between those big four.
Yeah, it's extremely big. This is a lot of people use this as kind of a narrative. This is from Vivek. Saylor, spend 100 hours learning how to keep your money. You spend 40,000 hours of your life trying to make money. It's worthwhile to spend 100 hours figuring out how to keep it. Now, historically, man, I'll give this to you because I'm faced every single day with latecomers to the market, top buyers. They're crushed. They're destroyed. Their heart is broken. And they're very disenfranchised right now. Obviously, we say for years, get in early, get in hard. It's so important. But this now narrative, you look at the last all-time high back in 2021, debase it, compared to today, Bitcoin hasn't gone anywhere from top to top. What would you say to people, Mando? That's a bit of a deep question about this type of narrative. Bitcoin will save you. Is that still valid?
But I mean, Saylor started buying Bitcoin with MicroStrategy in 2020.
August 2020. Yep.
Right. Now, do you think at the time he felt he was early or late? I would say at the time, a lot of people would have said he was really late.
Yeah.
He's only been doing this for 5 years, right? I joined crypto in 2021. Like, I was very late. I was in TradFi before that. I think you're never too late to kind of enter crypto or see the perceived value. As going back to what Marty said before, really, and that's going into my house. Yeah, it's never too late to see what Marty was talking about before, like the movement here from centralized to more decentralized stores of value. I think that's kind of obvious. I think it is worth looking at this sort of stuff. I think in terms of are you maybe you feel like you come in late and you're going to get wrecked this cycle. Crypto is just like this. Go back to any year, even that I've been in or before that, like it's often just months and months of chop. And then the periods of euphoria last for like 2 months, 3 months, and then it's chop and it happens again. And you just have to have faith that this continues in that sort of vein, and that we will have a similar sort of period where if Bitcoin breaks a new all-time high, I'm telling you with certainty that all the crazy risk-taking will return. Everyone will be like, I need to get Bitcoin plus returns at this stage.
Exactly.
Everyone will come in and be like, I want to own altcoins. I'm going to do meme coins. I'm going to do that sort of stuff. But you just have to make it through these sort of chop periods. The other thing I would say is that during these sort of periods, the consensus trades, they often feel horrible. Like if everyone thinks that Solana is a good long, or everyone thinks that Sui is a good long, or any of this, like that often in a sideways or choppy market can be a little bit, they can be bad trades short term. Like they can, just because those are often the people that, because they're a bit consensus, it means that if people are exiting, they're also getting out of those bags. But the consensus trades early in an upswing also go the most parabolic. So don't be surprised if you're sitting there and going like, why does no one understand the value in this right now? It's just because the people in crypto is shrinking during this period, or at least it's definitely not going up. But those sort of more consensus, like this is good tech, like this is where the activity is happening, sort of trade, they pick up early in the upswing. It's max patience in also some of the consensus long.
Exactly. This is a very interesting question here as well. And thank you, Crypto Dude. You know, you got 4 guys here, very straight, direct, no filter. We'll call things like it is. I really enjoy the podcast, but could they be more critical of Solana too? Solana, when you look at just the fundamental data, the adoption, the transactions, etc., it does 70% of all what crypto does. So it is the dominant chain. It is definitely the ETH killer, but there's more coming up from behind. But now some of them are trying to carve out their niche cases. I'm going to turn this question around ever so slightly. And is the top in for Solana at 295? First part, but second part, it has been really strong at 125 for months now. It's like it's a manipulated asset. We'll talk to you, Marty, after about the manipulation on Sol and how maybe they're priming it for the ETFs that are coming. But CTO, tell us about the support of Sol, and do we have a shot at reaching all-time high again, especially with the ETF coming?
Absolutely. So if I can share the screen here.
Yeah, let me just remove these and boom.
So exactly like James points out here, this is the support level that I've drawn here. And I drew it in red because if you look at this chart, if this breaks, it's not good, guys. It's a long way down then to the next support. And it felt like maybe it was breaking here earlier this month, but I think it was just a fake. So price is basically back to the support level. And again, I have it at 127. I think you've had it at maybe 125, 128, James. But the point here is that this level is still holding. So support means that when price comes around that level, people start buying and price shoots up again. It's happened a great many times here. And now it seems like it's happening again. But if we should be like a little bit more critical, I think people tend to mostly hear what they want to hear. But there was a key support break. I talked about this level for, I think, basically 1 year on this show, the 0.002 on the Sol to BTC chart that I didn't think would break, but it did. So that was really the breakdown. It became a head and shoulder pattern, which is like a top pattern, and price did indeed go quite a bit lower, and arguably that target has been reached. So that downside target from the range breakdown here has arguably been reached or almost reached. So that's when I'm interested again. And then seeing that these kind of support levels, if they're holding, I'd say that's a pretty good risk reward. But it's never easy, especially when price fakes below support and jumps up again here. So I got faked one time here. I'm still trying again. And I think like Marty said, I believe in the technology. I think they have made the right decisions, while ETH, the corresponding ETH to BTC chart looks like this, guys. I feel they've made the wrong decisions. They thought they solved scalability with L2s, but they built competitors instead. Like Base is a competitor to ETH layer 1, not a scaling solution. And I feel that was a mistake. I don't see any signs of them undoing it. So that's why I'm more positive to Solana at this point of time, but I remain flexible. You know, if something better comes along, why not? I'm game for that. I'm not a marketing manager for Solana here. I would love something else to come along, because the 4 of us here have been pretty good at finding new technology early that has in fact succeeded really well. We talked a lot about Sui here, and maybe something else will get invented this year, which will take over everything. Okay, that's great. That's an even better opportunity then. But right now, support is holding, but the trend is down, and the trend is down on almost every single coin. It's taking up like 200 coins. 190 is in downtrend on Mando's point. Like everything is down here. It's about when the trend will start turning up.
Exactly. And Marty, in terms of this, when I look at historical cycles, anything launching now or rebranding or trying to change things, it's too late. You know, this bull market's 80% done. whatever the winner is now, that's not going to change until next cycle. Any color to share on that?
Yeah, the Lindy effect. I mean, at this point in technology, adoption is always, in any software project, adoption is 90% of the challenge, right? Adoption is the hardest thing.
Yes.
And Solana's achieved adoption. People might not think that because they're in the crypto Twitter wave and they think it's all about meme coins. Well, it was never about meme coins. I mean, Solana was just liveness tested with meme coins. And you can see how quickly that ended. Once the narrative got bad, they ended that quickly. Solana is about moving value. It's a messaging network. It's just the next level of messaging networks. It's actually comes from Qualcomm, which is a cell phone infrastructure company. That's where Tolly and the entire team come from. So, it hasn't even reached potential. Now, there are two things to remember. You need to decide whether you're a technology investor or you're just in crypto to make more dollars. You need to decide that right now. If you're an investor, you need to wait till things reach maturity. You can't just bail out when released. So,
Marty, did we lose you? Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. We're alive. Marty lost his signal. Okay, let's move on to, we'll come back to him whenever he comes back.
Am I here?
Oh, Marty, back. Yeah, you lost audio for about 20 seconds.
Okay, sorry. My point is you got to wait for maturity. Solana's not even, it's still in beta. We need the Seeker phone to come out. We need Fire Dancer to go launch. We need 7 ETFs to launch. We need, Circle is printing $250 million on Solana every 3 days right now. Why would they be doing that? Okay. Solana is just about to hit its stride. The meme coin bubble was a bubble. It ran up to 300 and Binance sold it off. And I can, I've been very vocal about Binance and their strategy with Solana. But if you're a technology investor, people, you have to hold to maturity. Otherwise, you're not an investor. You're just a trader, and that's fine. Yep. You can trade away, but I hold my investments till maturity, and Solana is not even near maturity. So
there's a couple of other potential tailwinds for altcoin season 2. First of all, you did mention Circle. They're minting $250 million every day or two, every 3 days, and now this news: Circle hires JP Morgan to IPO late April. Right. I think that's a bit soon. It takes longer than that to put your S1 and everything in place. So it's probably not April, probably more like late summer, but I could be wrong. We'll see. The other thing that's happening is we have FTX money coming out. Sorry, I'm on a water fast, so my blood sugar is a bit low. We have the FTX money coming real soon, end of May, I think, and that could be confluent with the liquidity kicking into Bitcoin, etc. Any thoughts on that, Mando?
That timeline sounds about right for me. Like I think as I said before, I still think you probably have to have a bit more patience in this market. What I see at the moment is whenever anything outperforms, it just gets smashed lower. Like Solana had that brief period where it outperformed, it got smashed lower. Every one of the L1s I've seen, which has like popped its head above the parapet and rallied for a few days, the next 3 days it just gets smashed lower. Saw it with Bearer Chain recently, AVAX, Sonic, like all these, they have a narrative for like a week and then it just because people are leaving. So I don't think you're necessarily going to like miss one of the L1 rallies during this period. Like I said, I still think Bitcoin's probably the Bitcoin dominance goes up during this period. But I can imagine early summer, like June period is where we start to come out of this.
Yeah, and this for me is one of the most bullish charts I've seen in the last couple of weeks. But again, it's a Bank of America study. They do those studies, they give them to clients, and then the public sees them a few weeks later. So it is a couple of weeks out of date. But 58% of investors think gold is the golden trade and the trade war. We are experiencing a trade war. It's going into effect tomorrow, and the world is up in arms. But it's interesting. Bitcoin is on the list, and it's above equities. That's big for me. And second of all, anybody who understands what Bitcoin is, they know it's a superior gold. So basically, if you add in the gold segment of 3% and add in the 58%, it should be 61% Bitcoin. That's the way I interpret this chart. CTO, what do you think when you see these numbers?
It's very interesting. I see it exactly like Mando, you said earlier. Like Bitcoin is down together with equities, but it's slightly less down. It has outperformed equities relative to its usual size of moves. And I think that's exactly what we've seen here. And these investors were right. Gold, US dollar, bonds, commodities have done pretty well. And equities have done the worst. So if this was from February 25, they got it right. And I'm not sure when Bitcoin will become gold and trade like gold. I think it's many years ahead. I think it's still like, for us, it feels like, my God, guys, we talked about this for how many years? 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. And the people who were early, they've talked about it most of their adult life. But new people coming in, they like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Like a digital gold. What a great idea. They're not ready to replace gold today in March 2025. That needs years of state adoption and stability and all that stuff. But
Exactly.
I think it will come. We're just too early. Sometimes when you feel like you have an idea and you feel like, oh, but clearly that's going to happen, and then it doesn't happen. Then you feel, oh, maybe I was wrong. But I don't think we're wrong. We just realize it earlier. We just come to this conclusion. It's so clear to us. But we haven't, the rest of the world hasn't realized it yet. That's my point.
And this is probably the biggest news that happened last week that nobody is talking about. Marty or Mando, FDIC. Banks, after choke point 2.0, all of a sudden, FDIC says, okay, banks, unleash custody crypto, run stable coins, do whatever. This is massive and nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, two things. Eleanor Terrett just tweeted the same thing. Circle will IPO in April. So she's also reiterating that April month, we'll watch if that happens. But this to me slipped through once again. Most of the big news slips through. The big accounts don't really understand. This is probably the biggest news in a while. If you all know choke point was the government suppression of crypto via the banking cartel and banking lobby, either in a preparatory strategy to get engaged or as a threat to suppress it, make it bad, and try and diffuse it. But the FDIC were primarily behind choke point, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation of the US. They insure the money in the bank up to $250,000 per account. And they weren't really ready to insure crypto. Well, that has changed. Last week, they have now said there is nothing in the way of banks engaging in crypto and blockchain-related activities. This is massive. This means banks can custody crypto, they can deal in crypto, you can have stable coin bank accounts once regulation passes. This is just another cog in the preparation for banks engaging in stable coin and crypto. So this is massive news. But once again, the price won't reflect the news. In crypto, we have extreme market making, okay? And I just want to make that point again. If you remove the market making from the offshore unregulated exchanges, which I call casinos, Binance, Bybit, all of those, Bitcoin is relatively stable chart. It's being manipulated to be volatile, to support the futures markets, which are unregulated and offshore. When we bring those onshore, like Coinbase is buying Deribit, Kraken is looking at NinjaTrader, these are all strategies to bring crypto futures onshore and regulate them. When we see that, the market making will turn down, the illegal market making will be gone, surveillance will be increased, and you will see Bitcoin will flatten out, become more volatile, become like gold, like the SPY, much more organic chart. So when people say to me, why is Bitcoin so volatile? Why are people buying and selling? It's not people. Remember, 80% of Bitcoin doesn't move. Okay? It's market makers supporting offshore futures casinos. That's what they do. They sell longs in bullish. When the news is bullish, everyone goes long. The market makers flush them and take that money. When everything turns negative, people go short. The market makers pumps the market and takes the money. That's what's going on. It happened in gold in the early days before it was regulated, and it'll happen now. This year, FDIC news is the first evidence you see. The government is going to clean that up. And you'll see over the course of the month, I may be wrong, but you'll remember Marty said it. You're going to see a lot more pressure on offshore futures markets in crypto. There will be an attack before there's a strategic Bitcoin reserve, before there's a state reserve. That will clean that up. Mark my words. You'll see a cleanup in crypto of the offshore market. Go ahead.
Interesting. This is another good one. If we're looking for tailwinds, hope this is showing some Tavi Costa. And we know that there is an inverse relationship between Bitcoin and the dollar, the Dixie. And Tavi says Dixie is at a top. It's going down from here. And that goes counter to some of the tariff fears that are happening right now. But this is kind of a tricky macro one. Mando, I'm going to kick this hard one to you. Do you believe the Dixie is at the top of the cycle? I don't, because all the other fiats are worse off. It's the cleanest shirt in the laundry. That's where I get challenged. But Dixie has been very strong. And when it goes down, Bitcoin goes up. Sometimes when Bitcoin goes up, Dixie goes up too. It's tricky.
Wait for the digital dollar.
I'm mute myself. I'm less focused on this, actually. Like the dollar, I think has, like you said, has got a mixed record with Bitcoin going back. I'm more focused on global money printing. You talked about stories being buried. China just pumped $73 billion into its main banks this morning. I don't think I saw that anywhere. To put that into perspective, the TARP in 2008, I think, was something like 450 billion. So China just did something which is like a fifth of the size of the TARP in 2008. They just pumped into their main banks, and they said they're going to pump more. So there is global money being poured into the system right now. It's not happening in the US. I still think actually the US may not ease as quickly people think it will, but I think global easing is definitely going to go up. And I'm more focused on that than just the dollar. I think the dollar could remain stronger than most other like global currencies. I'm not as bearish on the dollar and that bailing us out.
Yeah, that's the news, by the way. It was in the China QE is massive. And this is probably a huge part of what will pump Bitcoin. But it all hinges on this key element as well. Amanda, back to you one more time. China unbanning crypto. How true is this? And there's been talk of ban, unban, ban mining, unban mining, all that type of stuff. Use it for trade, use it for enterprises, use it for treasuries. Where are we in China right now?
Yeah, I am not sure about this, but this is one of the main, if you talk about one of the key things that could lead to very bullish price action in 2025 that remains. We have the Stablecoin Act, we have RWA regulation, and we have, other than some sort of sovereign wealth fund getting even bigger into crypto, I think this is the biggest story that could possibly happen, which would be...
I agree with you.
And I don't know if it will come as obvious as this. I continue to think there won't just be like some statement from Chi or something like that, like, hey, we're going to get into crypto. But I think it will be softer, and it will be a turning of sentiment. If you've noticed what's been happening in China recently, so for many years, China kind of shunned its own tech sector. Jack Ma, Alibaba was basically banished. And then ever since AI turned around in the last few months, suddenly they're having dinners with all the big tech guys. You know, everyone's their friend. They've turned more tech friendly. And that does set a small stage here for maybe them softening their approach to crypto as well.
Yep.
I mean, the primary reason for their ban on crypto was because they don't allow capital to leave China, right? And so crypto is obviously...
I was just going to say that.
And
exactly, and thanks for bringing that up, because I was just going to say that, I mean, the backdrop here was that people were moving money out of China. Before crypto, they bought like paintings or the real estate or something to get money out of China to have it in the free market economy, in case they wanted to move to the US in the future or something like that. Like rich people in China did this. And then came crypto, and that became a much easier vehicle. So people bought Bitcoin. Then you can, withdraw it in Coinbase or something if you later move out. And the Chinese government didn't like this. So that was the backdrop to the crypto ban, as I've gotten it explained to me. Now, I think the world is changing a little bit. Like, it's not obvious that rich Chinese people want to move to London anymore. It's kind of, the London people maybe want to move to China. So I think that reason has changed a little bit also. And then on top comes this more tech optimism and increased confidence for China. Perhaps they don't need to prevent this kind of capital movement in the same way as before. On the other hand, I do think that they still feel that Bitcoin is kind of US centric in a way. But I'm optimistic that they will try to take back a stronger position, a bigger position in crypto, as they are doing in AI and basically every other industry as well, cars and you name it. I think they're coming. I think China is coming, and China moving into crypto has to be good for Bitcoin. Absolutely. I think they will try some moves, some Chinese currency and blah, 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 but it's going to be good for Bitcoin, and I think it's coming as well. Absolutely.
Cool.
I mean, China controls 55% of global hash rate of Bitcoin too, so don't forget that. They're huge Bitcoin miners.
Yeah.
China.
Yeah.
And I mean, just to add one more point, like, it's not that rich Chinese people couldn't buy Bitcoin anymore. They just bought it. It just got more complicated, trading in Hong Kong or something. But making it more regulated would be positive for sure.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a couple of quick questions because we'll try to wrap up pretty soon. But a lot of people, this is one of the times when people are very concerned and the market's very worried. But CPK has some cash. We'll do very, very quick rounds here. We'll try capture a couple of questions. Anybody deploying? I did a little nibble of something this morning, a small amount. You guys buying anything right now, or just waiting for the trend to turn?
I mean, I always have to say, CPK, you need to always say, what is your timeline? What's your objective? You're just deploying money, what, for 10 minutes, for 3 seconds, for 100 years? Like, what is this dry powder for? Is this for a long-term investment or short-term investment? If it's for short-term scalp, then you want to look at something that's highly volatile. If it's for a long-term, you want to look at something with technical prowess and competitive edge. So me personally, I've been investing in Walrus on Sui. I don't know if you guys are aware, last week Walrus went live. They had their token generation event. That's a decentralized platform on Sui, using Sui as its network, and that's like a competitor to cloud, to Amazon AWS. It's now at 46 cents. I've been getting that on any. So I would say Walrus for me right now would be the best thing to buy.
Okay. Quick question from Jimmy the Kid. When will Tesla be able to show profitability on robotaxis? Well, if you talk to Kathy Wood, it'll be a while. They're going to build a lot of them, potentially as many as 1 million of them in 2026. They will be launching in June in Austin. That's confirmed. The question is, what will they charge per mile, and how much will they adopt, and how many will they roll out? They're going to test it first, okay? This is a different type of technology from Waymo. Waymo only have 700 cars in the world. Tesla have the ability to turn on 7 million. So that's the difference. Profitability, I don't know if they're going to break that out for a while. I think the biggest tailwind will be FSD adoption in places like China in 2026. So that's kind of what I see there. Let me see. I'm trying to read the questions, unless you guys see any that are cool. Yeah. Waterfast, yeah. That'll be fun. I will do updates on that. That's fun. Marathon looks dirt cheap. It is. The NAV premium is insane. And they're going to, as Marty knows as well, issue $2 billion of ATM as well. Crazy. Any other good questions? Anything to add here? Anything happening in the market? Any breaking news? We do have, everybody's worried about the tariff stuff.
Oh gosh, have you guys been watching the amount of investment coming back to the US since the tariff thing? It's now at
3 trillion. Yeah.
So I mean, I can run through the list if people want to know the Trumponomics and how it works. It's kicking in. It's working to perfection. So.
It is, and people think Trump is probably an idiot or whatever, but it's not Trump making these decisions. it's the team behind him that really know. Like if you go into the background of people like Howard Lutnick and Scott Bessent and some of the others, they've made billions. In fact, Howard Lutnick owns $1 billion in MicroStrategy, $250 million in Bitcoin, and they know global trade, and they know how to, the whole idea behind what they call Liberation Day is so that the US is not taken advantage of. So if one country charges 100% tariffs on American stuff and the US doesn't charge any on their stuff, that's just not fair. And that's what they're trying to bring back into line. So there will be some short-term pain. We're seeing that in the global markets. There will be some retaliation. There will be some bending of the knee, and that's how it works. Any quick thoughts, Mando, on the tariff fears? Do you see it all blowing over real soon or being there for the next 3 years?
I think he probably follows through with this on Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? Yeah. And it's more unilateral to start. And then I think he does individual trade deals with his partners. I think he wants to show that he's serious about this. There's been a lot of walking back sort of stuff. And I think he wants to actually just have them there, and then he'll walk them back afterwards with the people that he wants to. So I do think you're going to get tariffs, pretty broad tariffs on April 2nd. I don't think this is going to be something that he backs out of last minute. I think he's going to follow through with it, and I think it could extend to other things too. Do I think that's like super bullish? I think it just remains to be seen. It really remains to be seen. Like, we haven't seen someone do this for a long time. It's arguably bearish other countries if they don't play their cards right. And you could argue that it could be bearish on the US economy too. But like, it is very much an unknown, because it often the real effect here will be the second order and third order impacts and how people react to them. So tariffs by themselves, I don't think are necessarily that bearish. It really just depends on how people react in terms of supply chains and how the major trading partners, if they're able to like walk back and do individual trade deals.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like it's kind of working. I just saw this news. If I can share the screen for a second. So, I mean, countries are cutting their tariffs on US imports. Here, they cut tariff on several products, including cars, approved the Starlink service, and so on, to avoid being hit with the US tariffs. Because that's what he said, right? If I understood it right. Like, if you have tariffs on US, we're going to have tariffs on your stuff.
Yeah.
So it's pretty smart. And I mean, at least in this case, it worked. They changed it. It said, okay, then we remove it. It didn't cost anything then.
This is a really good point. This is kind of what I'm trying to say as well, is that just because he's doing tariffs, there is a world here where actually global tariffs come down, right? Because yes, he's adding tariffs, but the tariffs are high on a lot of different countries. You know, there's import tariffs across the EU, across many goods for many different countries. There is a world here where, like, I know he's actually adding tariffs, but everyone else reduces their tariffs so much that you could argue that global tariffs go down. This is why I'm saying it's unknown. You do not know how this ends up. Like, you could see a scenario here where the EU decides, hey, we're going to drop a huge amount of our tariffs. India decides, hey, we're going to drop a huge amount of our tariffs. And a range of Asian economies, UK, like, they could all do that. And weirdly, you could end up in a world with lower global tariffs because the US is adding tariffs.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Very true. Yeah, this is another very interesting question from Chippy, and we like smart questions here. There is, and I've been concerned about this too, and I've seen the dwindling of on-chain activity. I was very surprised early 2024 when I saw all the ordinal stuff driving a ton of fees for miners. But since then, the on-chain activity for Bitcoin is going down. You know, people are stacking it. As Marty said, we've got nearly 2.5 million Bitcoin held by 4 players. And there'll be less kind of activity on chain, less fees for miners. What impact does this have on the overall chain? Broader implications? Could this strain miners, which strains the security of the blockchain? Any thoughts, anybody? It's a tough one. CTO.
Yeah, I mean, I would have preferred that we had more activity on Bitcoin. I was kind of in that camp. And I mean, if we continue this thought experiment that Bitcoin ends up in Coinbase, Strategy, BlackRock, and a couple of more people in like centralized storage. And let's hope they don't lose the keys. That's a less kind of optimal situation. I mean, not today. Today is not a problem at all. It's just a few percent each. But what if it continues another 10, 20 years? You know, could it get too concentrated? Like there's a few players controlling a too big part of the network. I think it would have been good if we can use Bitcoin a little bit more. I mean, people say, fees are so high. Okay, but compared to what? Have you tried doing some internet business? And, you know, welcome to the world of fees and hidden costs everywhere. It costs like hundreds of dollars. Okay, so Bitcoin is expensive then. It costs $2. But, you know, can't we improve on that? I still hope that it moves a little in that direction over time. I don't think it will happen now. And I mean, Marty, you have a very good point. Like if you want to use Bitcoin now, it's basically wrapped Bitcoin in DeFi. That's the possibility to use Bitcoin now is Zeus and other networks. But I'm thinking more long term. I do hope that we do make more transfers on the Bitcoin network, and that I think a lot about everything this doesn't become custodial. That's the point. That it doesn't become custodial Bitcoin only.
It needs a proper L2. It needs a Lightning that actually works and is adopted. And that is the secret right there. And also, by the way, if you got UTXOs and a wallet, transaction fees on Bitcoin now are 30 cents, believe it or not. You can move $1 billion for 30 cents if you want. It's mad.
Yeah,
Marty.
I mean, I think guys, you have to be aware. These regulations, I mean, I post this stuff all day. You need to be aware of the stuff. Only once they pass into law, crypto as legal tender, in other words, businesses can accept crypto in the US and the Western world, will you really see the beginning of crypto? Okay, now Lightning was a promise that was never realized, the Lightning Network. So that's why Bitcoin is not used as a currency. You're not going to pay coffee and pay $5 of fees. So there are other solutions, like James mentioned, L2s for Bitcoin. I think Solana and Sui are positioning as L2s for Bitcoin, which means there'll be, pegged versions of Bitcoin on those networks, which you'll be able to use as currency for free. And that's coming along. But stablecoin is the government's vision for crypto retail. Stablecoin is like a monetization of Bitcoin, the reserve. So understand the relationship between Bitcoin is the reserve asset. Stablecoin is the liquid monetization that you'll be using to pay for things. Not Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a store of value. And when you look at it like that, you will understand what's going on. All the stable coins will be moving on the fast networks, Solana, Sui, etc. You can watch it very clearly. Where is USDT and where is Circle issuing tokens? Where they issue dollars, those are the ones that are going to be used. And that's it. Now, I agree with CTO Larsson. You're muted, CTO. We want to hear you. You muted, CTO. I agree with CTO.
I have something important to share that happened during the show.
Go ahead.
Can I show the screen sharing stopped.
And we're getting close to we're at the hour, so we'll try to wrap it up real fast.
But this is important, guys, because as I said in the beginning, Bitcoin is following stocks, and stocks have been at a very critical point. This red line here is in the S&P 500, the mini futures. We were down here. It looked like this started to break down. Look here.
Coming back up, huh?
It looks like we're getting a big wick up above the support. A lot of people are sitting watching this one, guys. So if this is going up here and closes like this, perhaps the disaster is
averted.
Yeah.
It's always the same way. Buy the rumor, sell the news. Sell the rumor, buy the news, whatever. Whichever way you look at it, that's kind of what's shaking out right now.
This is a very happy development in my book. Let's hope it closes like this.
And quick final thoughts. We try to keep this to 60 minutes for everybody. Everybody's time is precious, including people here with kids running around their homes. Mando, any final wrapping thoughts?
On that final point, I controversially maybe think that over the long term, you actually end up seeing like non-for-profits and governments potentially ensuring Bitcoin security. Like, I don't know if Bitcoin's ever going to fix the fees being high enough issue, particularly after like, I don't know, 10 halvings from now or whatever. Like, I actually think that you could end up in a world where like huge Bitcoin holders or people who get together and think that Bitcoin is so important that it needs to continue, that there will be some incentive for people to continue mining, even if the security budget is not high enough.
Yeah, good stuff. Final thoughts, Marty, from you before we wrap.
Today's the last day for Micah. So March 31st, remember, USDT, FDUSD, all of those unsupported stablecoins will be delisted, and the pairs delisted in the EU. Watch out for that. We also got Larry Fink and BlackRock just reported their latest 2025 annual chairman's letter to the investors. I put the post up on BlackRock's site. Give that a read. There's a lot of talk of Bitcoin, but the most important thing is the front page is a picture of Larry Fink, and it says the democratization of investing to support my theory. We're going from centralization to decentralization, and BlackRock is on board. Exactly. But
and Larry did say he's very worried about the US dollar, and if the US dollar does collapse, Bitcoin has a shot. Reading between the lines. And CTO, final wrap from you.
I am super sure Bitcoin, the whole crypto, the decentralized economy, it is gigantic. It's going to succeed for sure. Everything I'm talking about here is kind of fun. It's fun to try to time this, little up, little down, try to trade it, to make money. But just want to clarify so no one gets confused. The fact that price goes up and down doesn't change my conviction that this is the biggest. This, together with AI in synergy, is the biggest shift of our generation and maybe ever in society.
Awesome stuff, everybody. Thank you all for coming. That was the Monday wrap. We may survive this week, but remember, we're waiting for May. 80% chance that kicking off May 1st, we will see the impact of the huge spike in global liquidity, including that massive QE out of China. And that's just the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, money floats all boats, and money is coming for the first time in earnest in 5 years. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night, my friends. Have a good night, audience. Thank you, moderators in the chat. And everywhere else, we're on everybody's channel. Links are below on my channel. And you can check us all out wherever you like. Thanks all.
Thanks.
Cheers.
And have a good one, people.
Thank you.
Stay bullish. Bye.